Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander with Bona Adhesives.
I'm Rob Johnson with the Bona Training.
So Rob, what are you going to talk about today?
We are going to talk about the, what do they call it? Old adage, to fill or not to fill?
To fill or not to fill?
To
Talking about
fill or not to fill?
talking about wood filler, correct?
We are talking about filling those gaps.
Yes, sir. All right. Um, we can talk about customer expectations. I think this is another one. I mean, at times, and I'm going to cite an article by Roy Reichow. God bless him. Did you ever know? Did you know Roy?
I think I met him one time at a school.
Roy was one of the most well-known inspectors in our industry. He gave a lot back to our industry, and we were lucky to have him in the industry. And he passed away, I think, in 2021, I believe. A wonderful human being, and he was the founder of National Wood Flooring Consultants Inc. and a former inspector. He was very well. I don't know anybody that it was more well respected than Roy and in his prowess for inspections and his knowledge in the industry. And he wrote a great article on for the Hardwood Floor Business Magazine. I don't know when it was. I want to say it's 2013 about just this very topic. Um, and I think that it'd be a good one to talk about. This is something that I never considered my entire 30 years of doing floors. For 30 years, with one exception, I'll tell you what the exception was. Every sand job if we went into a sand job and it had, uh, gaps in the floor, we trial filled every job. Never gave it a second thought, and I have zero regrets doing it. That's the way it was done where I lived, right?
Right.
The only exception to that was a 5/16 top nail floor with a bad subfloor that had a lot of vertical movement. Okay. That would
Yes.
sometimes change my approach. I did a lot of hand putty, and believe me when I tell you, because what I wanted to do, because 5/16 floors is all top nailed, every 7 inches you got to roll nails, 6 inches in some areas. Um, you want to fill those nails, but I couldn't get the wood filler in the cracks because I knew I was going to lose it. It was going to be unsightly down the road. So consequently, we did a lot of hand puttying. Never gave it another thought, and you know something? Never had an issue. Um, as I moved and came to the East Coast, and trout filling became a whole different animal for me. Um, in January, when the floors have all shrunk, and you have the gaps or what have you, and I'm not talking about huge oversized gaps, but your regular seasonal gaps and what have you. The question is, well, do I trout fill it? I've seen a lot of floors that were trout filled in those months, those winter months that were gapped out. Trout filled, look fantastic. Homeowner, oh my gosh, you're a hero. Thank you very much. Um, and then come July, when the boards start to expand, that wood filler gets squeezed up and pushed out, and it looks unsightly, right? And then sometimes it shrinks again and you lose part of the wood filler, right? Now you got a floor that's kind of filled, kind of not filled, instead of all uniform and the same. I think this requires a conversation of to fill or not to fill. And so I want to get your thoughts on that before I go any farther as well, Rob.
Um, for us, where we live here in the Northeast, I would hope that it would bust out. I would hope that if I filled something in January, come summer, when she starts to swell, I would hope it would break out. Because what I've seen happen sometimes is the boards will cup.
Yeah.
That putty stays there, the filler stays there, and then you end up with cupping. And if you end up with too much cupping, you can end up with splintering.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that it busts out. And we learned a long time ago, and everybody knows the deal, okay? And I say this 1,000 times at every single training is this is a craft, okay? It's a craft. And you and I, even though we're in the same business, we might do things a little different. And it doesn't mean that you're wrong, and it doesn't mean that I'm right or whatever. Well, you probably think you're right and I'm always wrong, but we're not gonna we're not gonna go there.
Not
Okay.
true.
Yeah, exactly. But my thing, okay, We didn't. And what I learned was
You didn't what?
we didn't trowel fill. Okay.
Okay.
The only time we would trowel fill is after I was completely done with the education seminar that I used to put people through about trowel filling. If we walked into the job and it was looked fine, not, you know what I mean? No big deal. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah.
If I walked into a job July and August and we saw a couple of seams that were open, I had no problem filling them because it's probably not a seasonal gap. Could be something else.
Yeah.
But I walked into a job one time to get paid, and the guy looked at me and he goes, "When are you going to fill these cracks?" And I said, "Well, those blah blah blah." And the whole time he's looking at me like, "I don't care. I want them filled." Okay, because now it just sounded like I didn't want to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now I'm just a lazy guy who didn't want to fill the stuff. Okay. Even when I specifically told him about the whole thing. So after that day, we educated homeowners big time about movement and this and that. And I know I've said it before, but I would always use your bathroom door as an example because sometimes people just don't realize that their floor moves.
Yeah.
They don't get it, They don't really notice the gaps. They don't see when it's tight, whatever. So I would always say, your bathroom door in the winter, it closes a little easier than it does in the summer.
Yep.
Because in the summer you got the added humidity, but you got your shower and your water going in there. So that door, out of all the doors in your house, is always going to be the tight one come summer. And then in the winter, and a lot of people are like, when it would just give them something to think about. And I would tell them, your floor does that same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And if I do trowel fill this, there's a point where once we go through a couple of seasons of expansion and contraction, some of that stuff might bust out or the floor might cup. And
Yeah.
now everything's going to look like hell. Okay. So it's just part of the charm, I would say, of a hardwood floor is, she's kind of living and breathing, expanding, contracting. And I said, and there's all sorts of things we can do, you know, add to humidity. I mean, the winters around here, everybody turns on their heat, things get really dry. I go, if you can do things to, you know, Pauline used to put bowls of water in front of some of the heat ducts
Yeah.
just because right there in the heat duct, boy, we get some incredible shrinkage. And my house was built in the 50s, so it's still expanding and contracting like crazy. Then, when I was completely done with the education seminar, and they would, and then you're waiting. And, sometimes people are like, okay, yeah, I get it, but I still want it filled. Okay. Oh, all right. You know, I told you everything. If this is your floor, I'm working for you. All right. If you still want it done, then, then we would do it. That
Yeah.
was probably the only time that we were trial fill.
Yeah.
And then the other times too, if people would say, "Hey, I definitely want it." I mean, I remember there was one time that I said to the guy, I go, "There's just way too much movement on your floor. I mean, this thing is just, it's a springboard." I go, "We can't."
Yeah.
And I actually put some in, let it dry overnight, and then the next day did a little movement on it, and he saw it kind of pop up, and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." Do you know what that
Well,
guy did? Wait, you know what that
what?
guy did?
What?
He trowel filled the floor over the weekend when we were gone.
No kidding.
Yeah, he used Bondo.
Oh, wow.
He used Bondo.
So I would wonder if that he would create compression set. So
Oh, no,
sometimes
no, 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 no,
no, no.
no. This was an
Right.
older floor too.
Yeah,
This was
white
an
stripes.
older floor. Okay.
Yeah,
Bondo worked really good.
yeah,
Worked really good until she wanted to shrink.
yeah.
Then it was splitting the boards.
Wow.
The boards were splitting right down the middle.
No
It was
kidding.
like an old 6 inch
Wow.
heart pine, and that unbelievable. And he called us back. The guy had the guts to call us back. And
Wow.
he's like, "What do you think we can do?"
More Bondo.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder if like sometimes too, if you do that and you fill it and it wants to move back, if you can create compression set. You know what I mean? Where it's trying to move back and trying to move back and trying to move back, and you damage the fibers on the edge of the boards, and then finally it just kind of gives up. And now them boards never expanded. 'Cause that's it now. Now you're gonna have oversized gaps. So like I said, it comes down to I talk to a lot of guys in the East Coast that go, we don't trout fill anything. We might trout fill the initial install for sure. And I talk to guys that'll just do the butt joints. I talk to guys that'll just say, on no sand and finish job do we ever trout fill anymore because of it. According to Roy Reichow in his Wood for Business magazine, I think it was 2013, he said there's only three ways to prevent this on future jobs. Number one, wait until high RH season when gaps close, then trout fill all remaining gaps. Okay. Number two, spot fill only large gaps and leave the small ones for normal and required expansion. Because remember, some gaps are considered okay. Hairline gaps that expand and contract and move with the season, they're considered okay. That's not an issue. Or number three, trial fill the floor in its current condition with a disclaimer of filler pushing up in your proposal and the cost to recoat floor in August at their expense to correct the condition. So you've been walking on the floor where the filler has come up and you kind of snagging your socks on it. And you look across it, kind of unsightly looking, you know what I mean? They look
Yeah.
peaked up. That's what he's talking about. So we're coming, we're in August, we're in the height of the humidity season. And it's going to start going into the winter months pretty soon. And where this will become, just again, the last episode we talked about sun fading and UV issues. And here's another one that something we experience all the time as well. This decision, and we get you go in that job, you're measuring up the job and whatever the rooms and everything, and talking to the homeowner. Some of these things kind of get away from us, so it's not a bad idea to have a list of things that need to be talked about. You could add dog scratches in their dogs as well, right? Those type of things. There's like a list of several things you could add to your, even if it's not for just your own mental notes of what to say on a bin, what to consider.
No, I completely agree because we just did it verbally. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? The
yeah.
education seminar of why your floor is doing this and that, it was all verbal. Now,
I think
through
that'll hold up.
doing trainings and talking to people, everybody is, that one guy I met in Chicago, he gives 2 sheets of paper, one at the start of the job of exactly everything that you could think of
Yeah.
was entailed. And then at the end of the job, a full how to maintain what you need to do to keep this floor. And he talked about everything: temperature, relative humidity. I mean, not just, hey, keep the grit off of the floor. I took a copy of both and gave it to Bump. I was like, this is brilliant. You need to do this.
You know
Put it all
something?
in writing. Plus,
Yep.
it reminds you too of
Yes.
things that,
Right.
like you could get off on a tangent. Like you and I are the king of
Yeah.
getting off on a tangent. you might be wanting to tell it some a homeowner something about this or that, and then once you get going, you get sidetracked and you never mention. You forget to mention, oh, this is why I
Yeah.
don't trial fill or whatever.
Yeah.
So to have all of this in writing, I'm telling you, I think that is the absolute best way to go. Just
Okay. So
whatever you can think about.
picture this scenario then. You did a job for someone a year ago. They call you back about this issue or about the UV issue, and you didn't have that conversation versus I gave you that paperwork at the beginning of the job. You remember you still have that. Here's where we signed, and we went over these things. And so you're prepared and you got yourself covered. So a whole different, there's nothing going in, nothing worse than going into that conversation. He goes, yeah, we talked about, remember, everybody gets amnesia. You know how funny that happens where, and general contractors are the worst, where, you explain something to them, you got to have it this way, whatever. And you think you're thorough, you tell them about acclimation, these type of things. And then they call you for the next job 2 months down the road. It's like you never talked before, or if there's a problem, I guarantee you, everybody's going to get amnesia. If it's not written down, then, it's a tough place to be. So,
Mhm. Let's talk a little bit about filler. Let's talk about Pacific filler. Okay. Um, you got to be careful with Pacific filler. A great filler, easy to use. I mean, especially since they reworked it a couple years ago, it's a dream to work with. Okay. But what I see sometimes are too many people like, hey, you know what? I've got a white oak floor. I'll get the white oak filler. And then they do Nordic seal on their white oak floor. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
keep going.
you really need to, before you choose a filler, make sure you know what the end color is going to be with the floor. Match it to there, okay? Because if you're doing a red oak floor, 2 or 3 coats of Nordic seal on a red oak floor, you might be better off using maple pine. That's going to get you a lot whiter color, going to get you much closer rather than, well, it's a red oak floor, I'll use red oak and everything's going to change color. It'll change color a little bit, but I want to match my filler to my end color and then go from there. The great part about the Pacific filler, you can use universal tints. You can use, oh, I'm going to find out if we can use chroma. I don't know if we can use chroma yet, but there are, like I said, you can use universal tints or the dust from that job. You can mix that in there if you're doing a natural to make it look even closer to the floor. So you got a lot of opportunity with the Pacific filler, but don't just, this is a red oak or a white oak floor. I'm buying the white oak putty
Yeah.
or filler. You know what
Well,
I mean?
that's the other thing with exotics. Do I match it now or do I match what it's going to end up being in a year from now?
Uh, yeah. All right.
So, um, well, I'll give my, I said this before a long time ago, but I'll give my tip when we trial field floors. And probably nobody's going to use this, but I don't care. We did it. I'm just going to throw it out there anyhow. Before we trial field, often we do it between coats. Let's say if you're going to go 50-80 or 36-50 or whatever, we'd rough the floor off before we trial field. And then, but before we trial field though, I would take a screen, a used screen or whatever, just doesn't matter, and fly over that floor with a buffer. And when you open the floor up with 50 grit or 36 grit, if you looked at it under a microscope, you see all like the hairs of the fiber that's raised up in the wood because you cut the wood, and they're going over those cracks and everything too. And also, it just kind of gets caught up with when you're troweling everything out. If you do that first, if you run a U screen or just whatever, just real quick over the floor, you slice all that off, and you get all that debris and all the stuff that when you're trowel filling the floor that would get in the way and get accumulate in the filler. Man, it is a dream to fill the floor after that. It just glides across the floor.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's smooth. You cut all that stuff out of the way so it gets in the filler better and does a really beautiful job. So,
Nice
and
tip.
also,
I like that.
I am also in the camp of using two hands when you trowel fill. I see sometimes that you could exactly say, yeah, he's trowel filling, but to me, you really want to push it down into the grain as hard as you can. And so I liked using two hands. When we're spot filling, we would slap it into the joint. You know what I mean? With a putty knife to really get it proud to fill that whole thing. But by trout filling, I really like using two hands myself. So there you go.
All right. Like it.
All right. What can else we touch on wood filler, trout filling, Rob?
Um, you know what I do want to talk about? I mean, it's really not with trowel filling, but we were talking about compression set
Yeah.
and we were talking about sometimes I'd rather have that putty bust out rather than cup the floor. I had a good one on the call the other day. Uh, guy's floor is cupping. And he's reading me all the moisture content readings. There's really no reason for that floor to be cupping. And then when we started, then he had mentioned that, he milled the floor. He was the one that kilned it and this and that. Ended up being a dry cup.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this is possible, but they said dry cupping was because the top of the wood dried out before the bottom of the wood. So would that be from overkilning or underkilning?
Over what?
Kilning. Kilning?
Yeah.
Kilning. Kilning.
This is awesome.
Kilning? Kilning.
Kilning.
Kilning. Yeah.
Mhm.
Did I just invent a word? Think I did.
No, that's the word.
Kilning. Yeah.
Well,
Would that be
kiln
too
dry.
much or too little? When he said that he's the guy who milled the wood and everything, I was like, all right, oh, maybe that's something going on there. Especially there's no, 9% relative humidity or, moisture content, which isn't crazy, not at all for this time of year. He was in New York. So I'm like, yeah, 9 is actually, sounds pretty good. And he goes, well, how is it cupping? I said, well, let's take a look at dry cupping. He's like, I kilned this floor myself. So I'm pretty sure it was dry cupping.
Nice.
Have you seen a lot of that?
Dry cupping?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have from time to time for sure. Yeah. Not something I've really experienced a lot in my career, running across it, but I have seen it for sure. Yep.
And the more I
Uh,
read, the more I found out that it happens more with engineered products than solid products.
yeah. Um, I had a floor dry cup when in Modesto, not Modesto, gosh, somewhere out in Central California. We did this big house for the guy, but sanding the floor downstairs, and it was hot as can be in the summertime, and we did our second pass with the sander, and the garage door had been open the whole time, right? And hot air was blowing in, and that hot air dry cupped that floor. So we moved on to the second floor. We did a lot of other things, whatever. We had time anyhow. It was a new build for a guy we did a lot of work for, and he's a friend of ours. Came back to it and sanded it. But yeah, I seen that. So the hot air blowing across that floor cupped that floor. So
Okay, so that's it.
yeah,
That would definitely be it then.
yep,
That would, if you had hot air blowing across that floor, that could cause that dry cupping.
yeah.
I wonder if that would happen with a hot floor. Remember the last episode we were talking about?
Yes, for
You
sure.
know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yep,
If it got
yep,
too hot, would that cause
yeah,
dry cupping?
yeah.
That probably could.
No, if it got too hot, like what you're talking about is just regular shrinkage. You've experienced that.
All right, I'm going to put you've dropped down to the top 20%, not
Well,
2%. We're
uh,
dropping you down to the top 20%
anybody
in
that's
that
worked in
in
the
that class picture.
okay. Okay. If Roy Reichow isn't enough to convince you on this. There's another inspector, Bob Goldstein, in 2024 in another article. And I don't know if he's still in the business or not. I think he may have retired. I hope I'm not I could be wrong on that. I don't know. Very super knowledgeable guy also. He says to fill or not to fill. That's the question. When you sand a floor in a climate with a heating season, you may not want to fill the gaps during the winter, as the filler will be pushed out in the spring and summer. On the other hand, if you fill gaps in the summer and the floor shrinks in the heating seasons, the filler will crack, crumble, and look awful. So just take those into considerations when you're doing your evaluations and you're setting your expectations on the job.
Now, these are a couple of guys who are a lot smarter than you and me.
Allegedly,
All right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're pretty sharp
Maybe.
guys.
Maybe. Yeah, you're a sharp guy, right?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
pretty good stuff.
But some people will just start pounding their fist like you have to trial fill. And that's when I go back to this is a craft. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not all going to get there the same way.
You know,
And there isn't a lot of things that are you have to, the only thing with that I would say is, grit sequence and cure times, that kind of coverage rates, those are the things that are written in stone. But when it comes to trial filling or not trial filling, their reasoning, there's behind grit sequence, there's no reason. There's no reasoning. There's no gray area. The grit sequence is the grit sequence. Cure rates are cure rate. There's no, well, it could be this, could be that. But this is one of those things where, this is just not written in stone. And there are some people out there that can get violent.
this is why you can't just read a manual, buy a sander, and start sanding a floor and go, yeah, just go by the book.
Right.
It's years of experience. It's a craft. It's an art. There's a lot that goes into this. You read the room. Every job is different. That's why it's so unique. Is that every job site is different. You can't do the same thing on every job that you do day in and day out. There's things about every job that's unique to that job site. There's
Right.
subfloors that, substrates that are unique to that job site. There's homeowners, there's living conditions, there's the way the sun comes across the floor. There's so many different things that goes into it. It's way more than the average person looking at this trade goes, oh, well, let me read a book. Oh, I'd say he'd go from 36 to 50 or whatever. There's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And it's all those little things you put in the toolbox that you remember that you can add up over time. That's why you got these guys out there. There's phenomenal flooring contractors. They know their craft. They're good at the hands-on part of it, but they have so much knowledge that goes way beyond that, that puts it all together. That, man, these guys walking around they're encyclopedias of knowledge. They're sitting behind that van, driving that van, sitting or walking behind that sander, on their knees installing that floor. You look at that guy, and he's way more than people know. The amount of knowledge he's accumulated over time, if he's been a student of the game, is frightening. So
And I get it too. I get why some guys are, especially, I've done schools all over the country. Okay. And, if you're a third or fourth generation floor guy out of Florida, your grandfather trial filled. Your dad, everybody trial fills. Florida, everybody trial fills. I get it. Okay. The issue is if that's all you've ever known, and I think this is sometimes where the internet can get people in trouble.
yeah,
If a guy in Florida who's been trial filling for 4 generations, he sees a guy up in the Northeast who isn't trial filling, he's going to call him every name in the book. But,
yeah,
up here in the Northeast, same thing. We got 3 or 4 generations of people who, hey, we don't trial fill, and this is the reason. Okay. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's just how we do things.
yep,
And sometimes the internet can get a little sticky with like, no, you have to do it like this,
right, right.
and especially if you've been bit before by that. Well, I shouldn't have trial filled this one because now look at what I got. Now it
Right.
looks even worse.
Well, that's the thing is these lessons come at a hard price a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
All right, Rob. Good stuff. I think we covered it. Unless you got anything else you want to add to this.
Nope.
All right. Well, listen, this has been another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Please stay tuned for another episode.